Oh, I've got a reason to smile. I do. Folks, in 2004, the movie Mean Girls was released in theaters, and I didn't see it in theaters. Because I was that combination of, yeah, technically I would have been 14 at the time, therefore I would have been old enough to watch it, but, I mean, come on. A teenage boy should not be watching a movie titled Mean Girls. But, over the last 20 years, more and more people, man, woman, sometimes even child, although hopefully they were watching it with an adult, have been talking and quoting and loving this movie to death. And so when I gave it a chance, I'm like, okay, if they ever bring it to the big screen again or anything like that, I'm there. Well, after 20 years, I can now say I have closure. Because I saw Mean Girls yesterday, sort of. We'll get to that in a second. And I can tell you right now, I had a blast watching this movie. Oh my God. Like, okay. Honestly, you know what my low and my high, my active kindness is? Like, my low is I didn't see the movie in 2004. My high is I saw the movie yesterday. And my active kindness was to myself because because I needed something good to happen to me this week, during the week. Don't get me wrong, you got an Antico this weekend, so my family this weekend, that's gonna be taken care of. But I need like something good, you know? It's the first movie I saw in 2024, which I actually want to emphasize something. Like, I remember like the dark ages where, like, after the holiday season, like, movies, especially in the month of January, just were not very good. There was almost no real incentive to go to the theater unless a movie was still playing in theaters that you didn't see, again, during the holiday season. So I'm really glad that, like, we're living in better times where you get, like, big budget movies that are actually pretty good. You know, in, again, what's known as the dead period, you know, January and February. Which, you know what, I'm just gonna call it right now. It started with the movie Kingsman. Which reminds me, I'm gonna go see Argyle in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that. But let's talk about Mean Girls right now. So, if any of you guys are familiar with what this movie is supposed to be, this is basically an adaptation of the stage musical Mean Girls. Yes, Mean Girls really was that popular that it got its own stage musical on Broadway. I was not made aware of this. I personally did not know that that was a thing. And therefore, nor have I seen it, nor have I heard any of the music. So, yes, by all accounts, this movie was Mean Girls. In many ways, exactly like it was intended in 2004. But with the added element of being a musical. Which you would think isn't a good idea. But when you look, if you just simply look it up, like I have in my notes here, Tina Fey, Lil Michaels, and Jeff Richmond all reunited to make this movie happen. This was the same team behind the first movie in 2004. I can genuinely tell you that 20 years later, not only have they not missed a step, but there's some things that have been improved upon. Like, for example, by the way, this is where we're going to begin. And yes, this movie will be filled with spoilers. Like, there was one joke that involved a teacher making out with a student. Like, in 2004, technically it really wasn't funny in 2004, but in 2024, that really wouldn't fly. Which is why that joke was not in this movie. Stuff like that made me think, okay, the people behind this movie really sat down and they really thought long and hard, okay, what about Mean Girls worked back in 2004? And A, how can we adapt that into a musical? And B, how do we make it relevant to, you know, in 2024? Well, of the things that worked, obviously I gotta give it up for Tina Fey and Tim Meadows, reprising their roles as Miss Norbury and Principal Duval, respectively. Like, they were funny in the first movie. They're just as funny now. And I love how they keep the running gag of Principal Duval. Like, he keeps having his arm in a cast. Like, that was in the first movie, and they kept it here. Like, small little details like that are what made me think, okay, there's hope for this movie yet. And obviously, I gotta get into the cast. You know, Andrea Rice is Katie Heron, Renee Rapp is Regina George, Louis Cravalho is Janice, I'll get to her in a second, Jacquel Spivey is Damien, you know, Avantika Kelly is Karen, Bebe Wood is Gretchen, and some new, you know, veteran actors like John Hamm as Coach Card, and Ashley Park as Madame Park, the French teacher. Like, this cast was good. This is a great cast. Like, you have young actors, young and for all intents and purposes, up-and-coming actors who are, you know, again, they're young, they're hungry, and they want to make themselves known. Like, this is exactly the kind of movie that makes you known to the public. I mean, I can definitely see years down the line some of these actors and actresses really, like, getting into their own and being in, you know, either big budget blockbuster superhero movies or just straight up Oscar bait. I could totally see that happening for some of these actors and actresses. By the way, I know I barely mentioned any guys outside of Jacquel Spivey, but Christopher Briney as Aaron, he was good as a sort of like the hot young, you know, the hot interest that Katie Heron is into. I mean, some changes happened I didn't necessarily think were necessary. Like, in the first movie, Katie had a mom and a dad. In this movie, it's just Katie and her mom. Like, where is her dad? I mean, they don't really talk about her dad. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in the first movie, Katie's dad didn't really have much of a presence outside of that one scene where after, you know, Lindsay Lohan's character in the first movie gets in trouble for, I don't think this is a spoiler, you know, quote unquote, pushing Regina George into the bus and writing the burn book herself. Like, that was a touching scene. But I really like how in this movie, like, you know, Andrea Rice performed great in this scene. In this whole movie entirely, but in this scene where, like, she feels guilty and she starts crying. Like, that's vulnerability that's needed for something like this. And Katie's mom, Miss Heron, played by Jenna Fisher, is really great now, comforting her. That's a great scene. I really like that scene. That's, you know, it's like stuff like that is, like, let's be honest. In this day and age, we're all seeking validation from others. Not necessarily the validation that makes a person famous, but, like, if you're feeling down, you want that someone in your life to tell you, you know what? It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel that way. And scenes like that they're just good. Like, this movie is full of laughs. I'll get to them in a second. And full of great music. I'll get to that in a second, too. But it knows enough to breathe. It knows enough to, okay, this is a moment that requires, you know, some calmness, some subtlety, and lets the audience, you know, think, huh, that's quite touching, I like that. But again, I just mentioned, this is a musical, and this is a comedy, and on both fronts it delivered. This movie had a ton of laughs. Oh my God. Like, Louis Carvalho and Jack Wall Spivey should be in everything together. Oh my, they're like, whenever they're on screen, they stole the show. And actually, that reminds me, regarding some of the older cast, especially like John Hamm and Ashley Park. Like, yeah, they're in the movie, but they're not really in it. Like, it's not that they're in it for that long. I mean, they have speaking lines, and they absolutely steal the show every time they're on screen. But this isn't about their characters. This is about, you know, the story of, you know, Katie Heron, you know, being a spy for Janice and Damien. All the while, she's hanging out with the plastics, even becoming a plastic herself. Which leads into easily the funniest moment in the movie for me. Because, I mean, it's not like there was a big crowd. I think altogether there was maybe like a dozen people in the theater. But there's one scene, I'm not going to give away what it is. But I myself say out loud, oh, no, she didn't. And 2 seconds later, Jack Wall Spivey as Damien Hubbard shows up like, oh, no, she didn't. And everyone, I say the line out loud, and then, oh, no, she didn't happen on the screen. And everyone in the theater was like laughing their heads off. Like, one guy turned around and gave me the thumbs up. It was awesome. Oh my God. It was fantastic. Avantika as Karen, she was good. Baby Wood as Gretchen, she was good. Speaking of things that are good, the music. The music is actually quite outstanding in this. Like, I found it to be very catchy. And here's the thing. I can definitely see some people like, you know, sort of bashing this movie because, again, this movie was made for 2024. You know, back in 2004, they didn't have smartphones and stuff like that. And social media did have a presence, but it wasn't the presence that it is now. Now, you know, people do have smartphones. People are taking videos and pictures all over the place. As well as, again, social media is a big presence. And this movie takes the time to really address that, okay, we're going to keep a lot of the same beats from the original, but, again, we're going to make it a little more modern. And that actually reminds me, because Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, like, okay, when Doug Walker talked about the movie Space Jam, he referred to that movie as a time capsule of 1993. Now, let's be real, Space Jam, not a very good movie. Let's be real here, guys, it's not a good movie, okay? I want to emphasize that. Yes, it's got Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan, but it's not a good movie. I say this because the original Mean Girls is definitely a time capsule of 2004. The difference is it's a much better movie than Space Jam would ever hope to be. Like, it's possible for a movie to be a time capsule of a given year and still be good. And Mean Girls definitely falls in that category. And I get the feeling like this movie, like Mean Girls of 2024, this could very well be a time capsule of 2024. But again, it's still a good movie. Which reminds me, I'm sure a lot of people who like the original and people who like this movie now are going to be arguing over which version's better. Guys, we live in a world where we have not one, but two Mean Girls movies, and they're both good. Why would anyone complain? And speaking of things that, and again, back to the music, the music's actually really good. I mean, one thing I was legit worried, and I mentioned it, and I kind of alluded to this yesterday. You have a Louis Cravalho in your movie. Moana herself. A literal Disney princess in her movie. And at first I was a little bit taken back because why isn't she the main character in this movie? But I get why. Because it really would be just the easiest cop-out in the world if you had a literal Disney princess, you know, be the main character of a movie. I'm glad they actually didn't take that route now. Because for one thing, Angela Rice was phenomenal. And plus, a Louis Cravalho doesn't need to be the main character of a movie to carry any scene that she's in. Much less a show or a movie. She's already proven she can carry a movie with Moana. She's already proven she can carry a show with Haley's on it. I mean, she's never done live action before, but she doesn't need to. If anything, I'm sure she's probably just testing out the water. Okay, I'm a pretty solid voiceover actress. Let me shine in front of the camera and see how it goes. And honestly, her and Damien, like her as Janice and Damien, are like my favorite characters in this movie. Like, don't get me wrong, well, actually, Katie Heron is also my favorite character too. Actually, it's hard to pick a favorite. It's really hard to pick a favorite in this movie. Because everyone was on their A game. Everybody was fun. Everybody was funny. And again, just like in the first movie, you know, we've got two Mean Girls movies and they're both good with good casts. So why would anyone complain? The only real major difference is this one's a musical where the one in 2004 wasn't. But the music actually kind of, you know, adds to what made the original good. And speaking of the original, all of the best lines from the original are in this movie too. Like, get in, loser, too gay to function. I don't know if I should have said that part, I'm sorry. Welcome back, nerd. She doesn't even go here. The limit does not exist. Like, again, the original Mean Girls movie was quotable, and they knew that, and so they made that good, you know, here in this movie. And should I talk about this? I've already spoiled everything else, why not? So, actually, have I spoiled it? I mean, all I really did say earlier was that, you know, Katie Heron's a new girl from Kenya, and she, befriends, Janice and Damien, and she helps spy on the plastics run by Regina George, who, Renee Rapp is Regina George. Like, you know what, I'm just gonna say, if I was a teenager in 2024 and I saw this movie and I saw Renee Rapp on screen, like, she would totally be my celebrity crush. I'm not kidding. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone was good, but Renee Rapp was brilliant as Regina George in this movie. Like, she definitely has the makings of, like, a great future movie antagonist. Like, I really think so. I'm not kidding. I mean, again, this is if I was, like, a teenager watching this in 2024. I am not. I never. Listen, for those of you wondering what my standards are, if you were not the age of 18 when I was 18, I'm not going to be interested. Okay? I've always kind of felt the belief that dating people younger than you is kind of gross. Anyway, so, should I talk about the cameo? Well, actually, there's two really big cameos in this movie. The first one is Megan Thee Stallion as herself appearing during the montage of social media images. But, that's not the one you want to hear. Oh no. Because all throughout this movie, you're kind of thinking, okay, everything's fantastic, I'm having a lot of fun watching this. But you know what would be really cool? Is if you somehow got Lindsay Lohan to be in this movie. Oh, she's in this movie, all right. I'm not going to spoil where, but she has a cameo in this movie. And it's probably the most perfectly timed cameo I think I've ever seen in a movie since J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man Far From Home. It was that good of a cameo. So, on the whole, this movie was completely outstanding. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I had a great time watching. Seriously, like, okay, this is like, I mentioned this yesterday. I'm a straight dude who's comfortable with his sexuality. One goal I have in life is to just like watch a movie like Mean Girls. It could also be something like My Big Fat Greek Wedding or Crazy Rich Asians, where I watch that movie and I'm surrounded by a bunch of girlfriends. We got popcorn, we got snacks. Some of us are drinking red wine. And we are just having a ball. Like, this is the kind of movie you want to do that. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. You know, it's great story, great cast, fantastic music, which I totally download the soundtrack to this movie, by the way. I mean, it's Mean Girls. What? It's almost a movie that's too good to fail. And it's, I mean, here's the thing. If you like the original Mean Girls, obviously I recommend you watch this movie. If you're a fan of any of the cast that I've mentioned here, yeah, you should go watch this movie. If you're a fan of good music, yes, you should watch this movie. If you're a fan of seeing a Disney princess actually do her thing in live action, which we've seen that before, again, Mandy Moore, Kristen Bell, Idina Menzel, we've seen that happen before. Louis Carvalho follows suit. She's awesome. Watch this movie. Yeah, this movie's fantastic. I've got really, I mean, again, they didn't really write out Katie Heron's dad. And they definitely took out some jokes that clearly wouldn't work in today's world. But there's a reason why, because those jokes really weren't very good. Every joke in this movie works. Oh, it worked for me. I'm sure some people are going to watch this movie and they're going to be like, oh, really? They did that? I'm sure some people will, but I certainly didn't. I had a blast watching this movie. Like, if you're bored, if you're bored and you're in the middle of the January blues, this is going to perk you right back up again. I guarantee you. I hope y'all like this video. If you did, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on social media. As always, I'm very homely in this video. For all you guys watching, enjoy today. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Friday. I forgot to do Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk or chat, I'm always going to be here to London, and I'll always be back. Take care and make good choices. 607 all day, baby.